everyone to the Gag Gaming Plus episode for today. I don't know why I said it like that, but today's episode is very special. We are talking about Sea of Stars. This is probably even just right going into it. This was a very anticipated game for us, and so we're happy to talk about it extensively. So my name is Alex.
I'm Ben.
And again, this is Gag Gaming Plus podcast where we just talk about whatever we want to talk about, whether that is video games, whether that is movies or anything. Honestly, comic books, probably manga, I guess. Just a bunch of stuff. But today is Sea of Stars, which is a game that came out earlier this year. It came out on August 29th. 2023. It came out on a bunch of different stuff. It came out on computers, so like Windows. It came out on Switch, PS4, PS5, Xbox One, Series XS. It was also on Game Pass. It still is on Game Pass, and then it's also on the PlayStation Plus Extra, so like the middle tier there. But yeah, we have a good show for you today. I don't know how long it's gonna go, so just strap in, and we'll be talking about already just one of our favorite games of the year and possibly ever. So yeah, let's get right into the basic plot here. So basically, the main plot of this game is that there are two main characters. We'll go off of first here. So there is Zale and Valir, and they are Solstice warriors in training. Solstice warriors are these special people, basically in this cult town, more or less.
It's
Of
very
like,
cold town.
yeah, of like wizards. Solstice warriors are people who are born on a solstice, so whether that is the like different sort of eclipses, so winter solstice, summer solstice, let's see, solar eclipse, lunar eclipse, and depending on that, Zale and Valir have different abilities. Like Zale's is more sun energy, where Valir's is more like lunar moon energy. And the job of solstice warriors are, if you are one, at a certain time you have to go and train and just never see your friends and family. And
Oh yeah.
you have to make special clothing, and like that's part of it as well, is just stitching your own cloth, which is a rite of passage. And then you basically have to be ready to fight dwellers, which are these evil beings, essentially demons, who are just out to destroy the world. And the main thing who controls the dwellers is the Flesh Mancer, who is like the big bad of this game. So you, along with other party members later, just go and have an adventure. This game is very much a RPG at heart. It is a honestly, it feels very much like a JRPG. I'm gonna be honest.
It kind of does.
It feels
In this
like,
aspect.
yeah, it feels like Mario RPG. It feels like Paper Mario. It feels like Chrono Trigger. Kind of has like Illusion of Gaia vibes. Great pixel art, great music, and everything like that. And it um, just has a good vibe to it. It just has a great vibe. That's basically the plot, is just you going on your adventure, trying to see what's happening, protect the world. Things happen. We'll go into more depth as we go along, because this is a spoiler cast. But I did want to just bring up the basic plot. So if you are interested in the game, It's available in a lot of different places. The game's not that
Oh yeah.
expensive either. Like, isn't the game like $35?
Yeah, it's not expensive. Right now it's only digital only. So this is a digital only game.
Unless you go
But
on Play Asia and get like the Japanese physical copy.
yeah, but they are saying that they are going to release a physical version at some point.
That
Uh,
along with merchandise, I saw they're gonna
oh
release
yeah,
merch, and I'd be so happy for this.
yeah. I mean, before I want to go on a little tangent here, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Before we get into like the nitty gritty of this, this was a game that just kind of came out of nowhere. I had seen trailers for it, and you know, I feel like it came out, especially in Game Pass. People just downloaded it and like, oh, this
Mhm.
looks fun, and it is completely blown up. Um, I think this was that, and I want to call it a hidden gem, but that's what it was. It was totally a hidden gem.
It definitely was. Like people who were in the know knew. It was a Kickstarter initially as well. So like there's a lot of Kickstarter stuff in here, and we'll talk about that as we go along into this. But like you are forever in this game if you Kickstarted it.
I think
Um
that's crazy too, by the way.
yeah. Um but yeah, no, it definitely sold a ton immediately, as well as downloads. And um not to get in a depressing note a little bit, they kind of changed their tune. But for a while there was that Unity issue where they're like, all right, we're gonna start putting a thing on downloads and make it so you have to charge and pay us money per download, because this game was definitely the straw that broke the camel's back, because it did so well just being on Game Pass and stuff. You can't really get money from something unless you specify downloads and stuff. So,
Right.
um, yeah, yeah, like you said, it's a hidden gem. It was a hidden gem for sure. Now it's out in the open. It should hopefully be getting DLC at some point as well. Like people are really liking it. Um, and let's just go right into this. So we were talking about earlier, and how we have this kind of structured is that this is a spoiler cast. So again, if you do not want spoilers, we will eventually go into more spoilery things. But we did want to give you a rating first. Um, Not really like a 9 out of 10, that kind of thing. Just like what are our thoughts about it without being with by being spoiler free. So I guess I'll throw that at you, Ben, first, because I've been talking too much.
No, you're fine. I think on a rating scale, if we did like if Get Out of Gaming had their own rating scale, it'd be like, you know, a buy, you know, a buy or buy used or,
Mhm.
on clearance, right? I would say this is a total buy. Um, when I got into this, I started before Alex started playing it, and but we were talking about it, I'm like, it's rare that I spend so much time in a game. And if you listen to the podcast, we're not gonna count Halo because that's just like multiplayer. It's not story driven. The only other game I've spent this much time with was Ghost of Tsushima, and this game just took my time away. And so even when like Alex was streaming, he'd be like, "Oh, look, their Ben just opened up, Sea of Stars." And so I would say this is a definite buy for anyone that's not played it yet. Um, and when it becomes like a physical version, I will be buying that as well. I'm gonna buy a physical copy because I played mine on Game Pass,
Mhm.
so I will also be supporting it. Um, excuse me, believe it or not, I am gonna download it on my PlayStation 5, and I will probably play it again. So, what about you? What were your thoughts?
So this game very much, as I already said, just pays homage, as well as just makes things seem better and just play as if our memories were accurate for the most
Mhm.
part. So like like how you think of a game from your childhood. Let's say I don't want to say a specific game, I guess, because I can't think of good examples, but like you think of a game from your childhood and you have those rose tinted glasses on, and then you go back and you play it. It's still really good, but there's certain things that like maybe dated and things like that that just don't feel quite right, but it's still like a masterpiece. Um this game, Sea of Stars, especially for me beating Chrono Trigger for the first time earlier this year, which it pays like heavily inspired by Chrono Trigger for this game. Um it's it's what I expect the natural progression of these games to go, as far as like graphics, sound design, everything. um I like this game better than Chrono Trigger.
Oh, wow.
I've said that I feel a lot, but I'm pulling up a tweet right now from September 3rd from me. So I'm gonna read this here really quick. This was early in the game, so still no spoilers. So my tweet, quote, I've only played Sea of Stars for about 3 hours now, but I know that this game is in my top games of all time list. I haven't had this much joy with a game since Celeste. Thank you, Sea of Stars game. Can't wait to play more. That was only 3 hours in, and I already decided that this game is great. Um,
Yeah.
I really fell in love with the story. I fell in love with the characters, but then also just that gameplay is so excellent and just plays very, very well that I didn't really have any issues.
Yeah.
There are things that you can turn on and off to make it um, easier, more accessible. But I didn't really do that. I did do it for like one boss maybe because I just personally just got stuck and I was just like I just need to get through this game. So I did it, I turned it back off. But otherwise, like yeah, this game in general has very good progression. It's not really too difficult, and if you do find it difficult, there are plenty of ways to making your experience the best you can make it. Which is great because this game is a game first, but obviously they have a story to tell. They want this story to be experienced by everyone, so why not make it accessible for everyone?
And to kind of piggyback off that, that's what I liked. So if you are not used to this type of RPG, um, they have the amulet system, and what's really nice about it is like so for me, I kept getting frustrated because I'd leave a battle, I'd have to make food and just keep doing it over and over again. So there was one I turned on when I was playing because I really wanted to enjoy the story. And basically, after every battle, all of my HP and MP would be refilled. Um, that's the only one I used, and it did make the game more fun because you know, in these type of games, as you go further, the battles, the random battles start getting more and more difficult.
Mhm.
And so, but yeah, I thoroughly agree with you on all those aspects there. I feel like it's for the beginner for the RPG, all the way up to the person that's like a really like hardcore RPG fan.
Yeah, definitely. I think that yeah, that's well put. This game is very good for almost everyone. I would say this is a good first step into RPGs if you've never really played these sorts of RPGs before. Um, and then the amulet system definitely does help because there are certain things and game mechanics and things which I just realized I didn't put game mechanics in the outline. So we're going to talk about it now really quick. Um, so with game mechanics, it has the Super Mario RPG or Paper Mario um, timed hit mechanics. So you have that part where you do your attack and at a certain point of the animation you can hit the button again and it will do like a bigger attack essentially or like an extra little
Yeah,
thing to it. everything has this, whether that is your regular attacks or your special attacks for your MP. They have special ones. There's also an amulet, so like yeah, if you're not good at that, you can turn on this thing, which I did turn on eventually, because enemies were giving me some trouble. Um, but you can turn on this thing to like where like little stars will appear, and that will tell you like if you got it correctly, essentially. Um, it won't necessarily do it for you. It'll just be like, oh yeah, you did do it correctly. And then with that, you can do extra attacks. You can also guard, essentially. Like there's like a reaction guard command. But yeah,
Yeah.
that was the thing I had trouble with certain enemies in the very beginning, and I got a little better with it. Was that every enemy attacks differently, so every enemy has a different timing to their how to guard to them, uh, or guard from them. So um, having those amulets and stuff definitely can help. And then you can also turn on an amulet, I believe, to just do the auto attacks for you. Like there is like I don't know, there's no such thing as a free lunch. So like you can't necessarily just like get auto attacks for free. Like there is like, oh okay, you get all your auto attacks, sure, but you deal like a little bit less damage or something like that. I forget exactly what it is, but there is a caveat to it. So it's not
Yeah.
completely overpowered. You can still enjoy the game, and it seems like all of these ways of playing it are as intended. Like there are so many different accessibility things that don't break the game, but you can still like play the game as a game, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think that's what I liked about it so much, besides some of the other elements, was just right there, like, the mechanics of finding a new enemy and the like learning the patterns. And
Mhm.
to me, learning patterns and learning like how enemies are and where they're at, especially that gives me nostalgic from NES because most of those games were just that.
Yeah.
You know, every enemy had a different movement. So, it kind of goes back to your point about, this is like, hey, we're doing this, but it's it's kind of a caveat to the games of old. And
Yeah.
so I loved that of like, oh, hey, it's a brand new enemy. I have to learn what their moves are, and then also like what that pattern is.
Yeah, which can be fairly difficult. I feel like bosses
Yeah,
have better tells than regular enemies. And I think that's because you experience the fights with the regular enemies so much is that you have enough time to just figure it out. Whereas with like a boss, like they're very telling of like, all right, this is the part when you should guard, this is the part when you should attack. But yeah, no. To get back on track, I guess. For a rating, we'll go through our ratings again at the end, more detailed. But um, we don't really have a rating system, but I guess sure,
yeah,
bye. Like this game is excellent. This game so far, I really like. So at the time this is coming out, so or at the time of recording, so uh I played Spider-Man 2. I platinum Spider-Man 2. I have played. I've beaten Final Fantasy 16. I have completed Sea of Stars. Those are like the three big games for me this year so far. Mario Wonders down the road for me personally, and then maybe Mario RPG, Like a Dragon, the Kiryu game. There's other things that are coming out this year, but Sea of Stars for me might be my game of the year. With 16, you haven't even heard this yet. With 16 coming up as my second, maybe. Like
really,
Spider-Man was so great, and I loved what it was. Um, but 16 just had better highs for me. So like
yeah,
with and then even with that, like my jam is Final Fantasy 6. My jam is Mother 3. I really
yeah,
love 16 bits ish like RPGs, JRPGs, and so My headphone keeps falling out. So with this, it was already, this game was already designed for me, so it's already a no-brainer that this is probably going to be my game of the year. That's how high it is for me. I still agree with my tweet from September 3rd, but when I only played 3 hours of this, this is going on my top 10 games of all time list for sure. Is it in
I
my top 10? Probably. Is it going to beat some other games that I talk about all the time? Yeah. Is it going above Dot Hack? Probably. So like this this game is just so great. I really recommend people to play it. Especially for the story, if anything. And if you do, that's awesome. Come back later and listen to this episode. But if you don't care about spoilers, you just really want to know about story, or if you have beaten the game and you want to chill out, we're gonna be talking about characters and stuff here. We're still, honestly, probably for these first three characters, we'll probably still kind of be spoiler free, spoiler light to a t to a tad here, just because once we get more into the game, these characters are kind of, they're great, but I want to talk about the characters um with context of story later. So just, we're gonna give you, for these first three characters, we're gonna give you just like surface value. What are they? Who are they? And all that. Are you okay with that? Just
Yeah,
so just so
oh
we
yeah.
don't like and alienate our audience for like a little
No,
bit
no.
longer.
I think looking at what we have here, until we get into some of these other ones, um, now once we get into some of the other characters here, there are going to be some pretty big spoilers.
Exactly.
So,
So yeah,
but these
probably with
first
our,
three are,
yeah, our fourth character is definitely going to be more of a
oh
spoiler.
yeah, yeah. But I still feel like going through and do this. I mean, it's a spoiler cast,
Yeah.
so let's go. Going through these first three are going to be pretty much like, if you were to look up the game, these you're going to get these names.
Hmm.
So, but
So
I may say something about one of them, and I'm just going to probably totally do the. I don't know. We'll see what
okay,
I'm feeling. I'm
okay,
feeling kind of feisty, so we'll
okay.
see.
The last one, I want to talk about stuff a little bit later, just because of how it is, um, story heavy stuff. But so let's go with Zale first. Zale and Valir, I guess they're kind of, they're the first two characters. We talked about them a
Yeah.
little bit earlier. They're the Solstice Warriors. They're the Solstice Warriors in training. Um, who did you play as? Who did you
So
choose?
I played Zale,
Okay,
um,
that's who I did too.
and
Um,
and we were talking about this earlier. Like, just so you know, there's no different in story or anything if either of those characters. Uh,
yeah, there is a location that I found out after I beat the game. Um, like basically, like in a lack of better term, there's like a hideaway that you can go into, and you can find your opposite character sitting around, and you can talk to them, and you can switch who your first main party character
oh,
is.
nice.
Um, because it's right beside like the compendium thing with the achievements and all that. So like, yeah, you can definitely go there and change your character if you wish. Um, I didn't know who to play as. I honestly not didn't necessarily like flip a coin, but I kind of just like chose at random because I knew that it didn't really matter. But yeah,
Right.
I kind of wish maybe I tried Villiers just to see if there's anything a little bit different. But since you did Zale, but that's totally fine. I mean, they're honestly both blank slates.
Right. Right.
They aren't, they're important, but they're not important. They are solstice warriors who just are put into the situation of helping out. Um, I'm gonna name drop someone for a little bit, like the headmaster, as well as the other two solstice warriors as well, to just try to protect the world from the flesh master, of flesh master. I forget what I said. Uh, what's his name? What's his name? I
I'm
can't.
free. I'm pretty sure that he is the Flesh
Fle
Meister.
Mancer.
Mancer, that's what it is.
Flesh Mancer. I was like, man, I was like Heat Miser, Heat like what's his name? This isn't Rudolph. So yeah, you're just trying to protect the world from dwellers and uh your main two characters, their real only developments are plot based. Um they do they react almost exactly the same. And I think that's meant
Yeah,
on purpose um because you can switch between the two freely. There is no real difference. They are the same character more or less. It's just one has moon powers, one has sun powers. And
yeah,
I guess yeah, so it's really built around the characters around them, is how you get it. So it's similar to um let's say like it's similar to like Persona 4, right? So like Persona 4 or any sort of Persona game for the most part, um like you are a main character, but you're also a blank slate initially. It's really the friendships and the social links that you make along the way that define your experience and define your story. And I feel like that's what this game is trying to do. Um, which is kind of strange because like if their influence is like Chrono Trigger, like Chrono is a silent character kind of, but like he also is like I don't know, he is more of a character I would say Zale and Valir. Um but yeah, they I want to talk about combat for a little bit for them. So yeah, Zale is mostly like sun powers. So like he has a lot of cool like sun blasts, and he has this really cool super near the end
oh yeah, that's really sweet.
where he kind of just like takes the sun power and just like shoots a giant ray. And then Valir has the one where standing on that floating island gets the moon power and just starts like vaulting just different moonbeams, and then just this huge beam comes out. um how'd you feel about our main characters as far as how they controlled? So like um Zale is a swords person. I forget his actual term. Because they each like get like a class essentially
Yeah,
from one of the characters. But like Zale has a sword and Valir has the lance essentially.
yeah.
How'd you feel about that? How'd you feel about each of the how the characters played? Like again, we said that they're essentially the same as far as like story goes and character development goes, but um they do play a little bit differently, and so you do have to kind of like think who you use with who, and command combos and all of that. Who'd you gravitate towards the most as far as like using a lot? Like I know we both chose Zale as our main character, but like you can switch people out during a
Oh yeah.
battle, so like you don't have to have Zale out all the time. Um, did you use both of them together mostly? Or did you switch out other people without saying names necessarily right now? But like,
Yeah.
how'd you feel? How did they feel for you?
So I did most of my battles were with both of them together. And then that other character I would switch out, as needed.
Unless
Um
someone dies and then you have to like switch
yeah,
around. Yeah.
yeah. But like I liked the fact that they had their different powers and stuff. And I felt like as they leveled up, they were still about the same level. As where other people when they level up, attacks will be better, defense will get better, and we'll go into more of like how that works later.
Hmm.
Um, but I did use both of them for I would say a good percentage of the battles together. And once they start learning their supers or combos with others, then you're like swapping back and forth with people, you know.
Yeah.
But it was a for me, I love the fact of Okay, so these, especially when you later on when you get other characters, it's nice to be able to switch out. But for a huge percentage, I used the both of them just because they were the most reliable. They were the most um their attacks worked generally on most things,
Hmm.
you know, most enemies. And so and especially for boss battles, I would say I would never go into a boss battle without both of them in my lineup.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. They had really good attacks, combos together. They had one in particular, where they could heal like the whole team for a tiny bit.
Yep.
So I used that a lot, which used like two combo meter. Um, they had a really good attack where they could just do their regular attacks together, and so that would help like knock down that meter on the boss or whoever you're fighting. um but yeah, no, these characters, for who they are, for what they are, like most characters in this game play very well. There is one that I don't like playing as, but we'll get to that a little bit later. But yeah, just for these characters in particular, um, I think that they're good starting characters to use.
Right.
Um,
It definitely is, they're well-rounded characters,
mhm.
which
Let's
is important.
yeah. Let me see here. So let me see here. So I want to kind of get into another character here briefly first. Um, I'm gonna pull something out here for a little bit actually, and go off script, even what I just talked to you here a second ago. Um, just deciding. I kind of want to bring in the headmaster here briefly before we talk about our third character here.
Oh, yeah.
Um, so Headmaster Moraine is a character who, as you find out, suffered from the Fleshmancer's attack with the Dweller, and all of the Solstice warriors essentially died that day, except him. Like he was the one who came back, and he was pronounced. He just, yeah, he just became headmaster because he was the last one who survived.
Yep.
um and so the other two solstice warriors who were in training at the time, who are basically your counterparts, they Brugav Brugraves, and Erlina, um they are essentially a mirror version of Zale and Valir. They both have the same types of like sun magic versus moon magic. And so they saw what happened, and they're also in the same predicament that you are, of being lucky enough to be a solstice warrior, and having to just do this job. With great
Yeah.
power comes great responsibility. Too bad.
Yeah.
You gotta fight stuff, and you can't just quit, otherwise like the world dies. This isn't like Spider-Man quitting.
Right.
Spider-Man quits, there are other heroes. Like I know, like you hate to say that, and like you can justify it one way or the other, is like, no, but the world needs a Spider-Man, New York needs a Spider-Man, sure, but New York has Avengers Tower there. There are people around. They're not always around, but there's enough people around to keep the world spinning. With
Yeah.
this particular place, you need solstice warriors, otherwise the world will become a world of ruin, um like Final Fantasy 6 or something. Spoilers for Final Fantasy 6. Like it will, yeah, it will just get really bad and be a
Yeah.
dark place.
Well, and
um yeah.
like the reason I really liked Headmaster because, obviously this is a spoiler cast. Um, and we've already brought him up. So at certain points in the game, you could see his pain. There's flashbacks. You see a lot of this stuff happen. Um, and then at one point, he is just like, "I don't wanna do this anymore," you know?
Yeah, definitely. Like
It
it definitely really hits hard. Because we've talked about how Zeo and Valir are just our seeing eyes. The headmaster, Moraine, is really the first person, besides another who like you see and just you feel for, you sympathize for.
yeah,
Like you hear all the stuff that happened to him. He didn't want to be in this position. He was just
no.
fighting with his people because that's what's right and that's what you're supposed to do. And he's like, "All right, well, the world's screwed. Um, See ya. I'm gonna go retire and just be depressed, old man."
Which is not something that you see in most RPGs. Like, you don't. Like, normally, you know, in most of them, since he's a headmaster, he would be killed. And then it's like a revenge thing of like, I want to get revenge because they killed my headmaster
Yeah,
in my master. But like, he literally was like, I'm just done.
yeah.
He's like,
It was
peace out.
crazy to see. I was very happy to see that it wasn't that sort of trope. That it was like, oh no, my headmaster, we must avenge him. We must do this. It was just like
Yeah.
it was just kind of like a oh, our master lost hope. It was a different way of avenging him. It was a our master lost hope, but we haven't because we're blank slates who can do anything. um
Right.
I'm not
Right.
trying to hurt Zale and Valir, but like that's really what their character is. It's just we are the solstice warriors, and we can do whatever we want.
Plus,
um
it was a nice change because it wasn't like the cliche of like most, you know, RPGs, you know?
yeah, definitely.
Or
uh
or even games in general. Like, how many games have you played where it's set up just like this, where this person's a chosen one, they are, you know, there, and then something happens with either a father figure or someone that trained them is
mhm.
killed, and so now it's like, I have to go get revenge. So this was a really nice change in story,
Yeah,
and you know, I know we'll talk about dialogue later, but the story's written so well. But the thing that cracked me up is like, and again, this is a spoiler, so I'm going to say it. Like when he decided, it was like, dude, peace out. I mean, it was very much like that right there. It
yeah.
was no huge dialogue, and he was gone.
Yeah, he was very much Hubert Farnsworth from Futurama, being like, "I don't want to live on this planet anymore," and just kind of just goes in his own little secluded environment. It's just like,
Yeah,
I'm sad, man. I'm gonna go back to my room and sulk because like
yeah.
there's nothing else to do here. Um, yeah. So there's also another character here who we've kind of been avoiding due to like spoilers and stuff like that. There is a character who is um known for being the best friend of the group. This character really has amazing personality and is known for like he reminds me of Steven Universe, honestly. Like that
Oh
he's
yeah,
drawn like Steven, he acts like Steven, he uses like a shield. Like he has to be designed by Steven Universe. But he's also really known for being a good cook, and being just having like really healthy food and just making the other people feel good about themselves, feel good with food, feel good and just be healthy. um but yeah, like speaking of just healthy food and feeling good, um in my personal experience, I I drink just a lot of soda. I need to stop.
yeah.
And like because of that, I just feel very fatigued and like um you get that crash from too much caffeine, or you just get those jitters. And so I've been using something called Magic Mind, which is just changing the way I feel. I've been feeling great. I don't have to rely on drinking soda. Honestly, I've more or less just like cut it out. completely out of my like daily like early regiment of like waking up in the morning, need something to drink. Um but yeah, thanks to like Magic Mind, I've been having a good time for sure.
Well, it's funny because we both have been doing it, and we were, you know, we're always skeptical. It is the name of the game to be skeptical of everything and everything that's promised. Um, by day number 2, I and this is like 1 drink in the morning. I'm a coffee drinker, so I would have like 2.5 cups in the morning, right? And then 1 in the afternoon, and 1 late in the afternoon, and then I would hit that crash. And so, when we started doing this by day 2, Alex and I were talking, and I was like, "Man, I've had like 0 coffee today." And anybody that knows with caffeine, if you just stop something like a regiment like that, it's not good. What I liked about it was I I loved the fact that it was all natural. It tasted pretty good, um, and the way I felt. And I know these are like little things, but when I say like I feel good, like I feel really, really good. And you know, I would hit that wall. With all the caffeine in my body, I would hit that wall. And I would also do energy drinks, which are really not healthy. But it's crazy because like the things I would get were like I would just have so much caffeine that I would get the jitters, my foot would be going. I don't have any of that with this product. So with Magic Mind, I have none of that, which is crazy for us to be saying like, oh yeah, yeah, this is what it is, but it literally is what it says it's gonna do.
Yeah, definitely. And you kind of touched on it a bit. Like it has all natural ingredients. There's no like sugar, it's nut free, it's vegan, it's keto, it's paleo friendly. It's definitely something that we here at Get At Gaming support wholeheartedly. And uh, thanks to the magical people over at Magic Mind. um we have a special offer for you at magicmind.com/get at it. That is magicmind.com/GETATIT. Magicmind.com/get at it. You can get up to 56% off your first subscription for the next 10 days, as well with using our code gaming20. So GAMING20. You can also get up to 20% off of one-time purchase with that code gaming20. We definitely recommend it here. We've been feeling great since we
Yeah,
first tried it. And we definitely wouldn't support something that we don't believe in. So like it
exactly.
feels great. Um,
Yeah.
but if for some reason you don't like it, that's totally okay because Magic Mind also has 100% money back guarantee, no questions asked. If you don't like it, they'll refund you. So you don't have to worry about that. But again, that is magicmind.com, magicmind.com/get at it with code gaming20. Magicmind.com/GETATIT. So um, I really want to talk about our food man, our healthy man, Garl. Garl is a great character, and I don't know if I want to spoil stuff for him already or not.
I mean, this is a
It
spoiler
is a
cast.
spoiler cast, so maybe I will. You know what? Okay, so you know how we talked about um how things with tropes and all of that, how
Mhm.
we don't really enjoy tropes here or there. Like there are tropes that are really dumb, there are tropes that are interesting. This game tricked me too many times. It's the whole like fool me once, shame on me, fool me or shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me, fool me 3 times, why'd I believe you? Um so this game, as we kind of alluded to earlier, um, there's a lot of different stuff that happens. And due to certain parts of the story, um characters die essentially. So Garl at the very beginning almost of this game, when you go for the first dweller, he gets possessed by the dweller because the other dweller, or the like basically the one person in that area of like the spooky mansion, gets possessed. They walk to the gate, and then if they go to the gate, then they they basically like die and I don't know, sustain the dweller. And so Garl became the next one. And so all of a sudden this mysterious character comes out and is like, "Hey, I know how to save him, but we got to do this weird thing." And I was like, "Man, Garl had my equipment. Garl had my good amulet stuff."
Right.
He was the guy who was like, "I can see enemies health and all of that." And so him being gone and him getting hurt, I was like, great. They're killing off the best friend character. Your only like real like touchstone to I don't know, just normalcy. Because like he's a kid who like lived in that village where your cult headquarters is,
Right.
and you all hung out with each other. You had this little hideout, and eventually you have to go and be in the actual like magic school. And so because of that, you can't see your friend for a while. So you go with him, and he's like, "Hey, we should go on an adventure just on our own." And you're like, "Okay, this is weird." And you're like younger. And so you go through the cave, and Garl, this is the first time actually. So yeah, this game like fooled me 4 times. So you go into the cave, Garl gets attacked by a monster. I thought he was dead.
Yeah, so
I
did I.
I thought he was dead immediately. Nope, he just lost his eye and he's still smiling as ever. And I thought he was dead um until you see him late like in like the present time, because it was like a past thing that you were seeing. And then he hangs out with you, he joins you on your quest and venture. And he then in this spooky town he gets possessed, and then he is dead again. And I was like,
Yeah.
okay, I don't believe you this time, but all right. This is weird, but maybe it is true. Maybe he is dead, but there is a way of bringing him back. So I guess he's not dead. All right, they're not going to kill this character. And you do the stuff. You fight the dweller. We'll go more into that in a little bit. You fight the dweller. You do all that, and then um you you basically you go through the game. There comes a part where you get your prophecies read, and the prophecy for Garl is very interesting. It's basically like he has to ask for borrowed time. And so I'm like, oh great, so they are killing him. um and so you just keep going, and eventually he um he dies, and that's just not cool. um so he's starting to die, and he needs to ask for borrowed time, and he remembers and says it. And so he basically can survive. He is going to die. He is destined to die, but he can survive as long as he has a will and a goal in mind. And his goal is to wake up the slumbering dragon to help them get the to fight the Fleshmancer and like get to the Sea of Stars and all of that, and just figure out like what all this is. Go see like the big old angel people and do all of that. And so he is essentially like in this weird limbo space of where he's like fading. Like he is
Oh, yeah.
literally just like a ghost coming in and out, and occasionally like he's in huge pain. Like just imagine like someone dying from something horrific like getting shot, but having to withstand that pain through sheer force of will and just continue to do something important because you know that the greater good, you have to do this because your life doesn't mean as much as saving the world. And so he does all that, and he then just dies.
It was such a weird part because I'm like, maybe if he does all this, they'll find a way, or something will happen, right? Um, no, man, he, yeah, it, it it's definitely a moment where you've already spent a good percentage of your time in this game,
Yeah.
and so, you know, it's definitely like it kind of hits you because you're like, with those other times you're like, oh, it's good, he came back, it's
Yeah.
good, right? But like this time you're like, oh no, man, he's dead, dead, you know.
Yeah,
Um,
he definitely is the glue, and he's definitely like the cheery person because he's a normal person, but he's also knowing that his friends need like they need some sort of happiness because
yeah,
otherwise like they're too focused on their dreary job of like trying to save the world. So it's really nice to have Steven Universe here be your guide and like help you out and like be generally interested in like, oh, they're pirates here, that's awesome, what's your name, whoa, is that your ship, that's really cool, let's go hang out, let's go do this stuff. And it's really different from having your two blank slate people. You can live vicariously through Garl and like his wonder, and seeing that character disappear and die and get and ride. He does his job. He wakes up um the sleeping dragon, which I forget what's his name. I haven't talked about this yet, but this game is the second game made by Sabotage Studios. Um, and the first game that they made was called The Messenger, and
yep.
it's like very much like a Ninja Gaiden love song essentially. Um, and so it's very much like an updated Ninja Gaiden that goes between 8-bit and 16-bit. Um, the Sea of Stars is a prequel to The Messenger. So there are a lot of things from it. The dragon in particular um, is a character and a nice character in The Messenger. So if you played The Messenger, got that far, and then see the sleeping dragon, you're like, oh, that looks kind of familiar. And then when you do wake him up and you hear his name, which again I forget what his name is, I'm gonna have to look it up here in a second, because I can't seem to find it. But like, um, when you wake him up and what's his name? It's like some butler name. Um,
It is. I can't remember it either.
yeah, I'll have to look up here in a second. But basically, like it's a very specific name, um, to where you find out, oh, Garl named him. Like that was like his final thing that he did, and he named him. And
It's not Edgar, is it?
no, it's not. It's like what's his name? Wentworth. Wentworth is his name.
That's what it is.
Yeah,
Yep.
it was originally like something else, and he's like, no, you don't seem like that. It was like some other generic like butler name, like Alfred or something. Like I
Yeah.
think it might have been something similar to that. And he's like, no, you look more like a Wentworth. Like you be Wentworth. And so he's like, all right, cool, I'm Wentworth. Where you want to go? And Garl's starting to fade out, and he's like, I just really want to go back to the island and go to like the tree, where he makes his like honey and or his sap and all that stuff to like make really good food. And he basically just dies on that ride there. and it's like really impactful. It like surprised me and actually like
Yeah.
legitimately made me sad. Um, and then it's there's an homage to Shining Force or something like that. To where similar like a Ninja Gaiden something. There's this whole scene, cut scene, like an actual like cutscene that happens, and where they're burying Garl, everyone's reacting. And it's like in boxes. So like if you're an audio listener, like how you see us in boxes like this with our video um here on YouTube, you can you see like comic panels and like zooms in and you see people really upset, like banging on the tree or banging on a wall and crying and the rain and all this other stuff. Very, very moody, very depressing and dark. And I guess that's like almost not a shot for shot remake, but like it's very similar to like either Shining Force or one of those like Fantasy Star, something like maybe like Fantasy Star 3,
Yeah.
but like it's supposed to be like that. And it really is impactful because like the game doesn't really do that. It has like real like it has animated cutscenes from time to time, which are interesting and to see. um but like they don't have the same impact as seeing like a 32 bit thing react. So depressing. um yeah,
Yeah.
how'd you feel about that scene in particular?
Um, it was definitely for me like it was a somber, quiet moment. And so for me, I was like, man, like this is really sad. Um, because he was their like cheerleader, he was like their person that no matter how bad or what they were dealing with, he'd be like, yeah, we could do it. Um, but at this point on, you know, when they're upset and they took him back to the tree he wanted to be at, they say, you know, like we're gonna finish this. We're gonna finish this for Girl, you know, and it's like that moment of, damn. I would compare it, and I'm not comparing it in so many ways, but it made me feel about um, Star Wars: New Hope when you see Obi-Wan die,
Hmm.
and you're like, you know, Luke is yelling and screaming and he's upset, but it's like that moment, like, listen, you know, but that whole scene on the dragon is very sad.
Yeah.
Um, but it really sets up that second part of the game because at that point you're there. You know, you're very close to the end of the game at that point.
Hmm.
Um, and you know, you even go back at one point and visit the grave again before you go to the end of the game. Um,
Yeah, yeah, definitely. We'll talk about Garl here in a little bit. I want to talk about some other characters here as far as story goes and all of that. So we touched on do I want to talk about Sarai? Sarai? I don't know. Let's talk about Bugraves and Erlina. So we talked about them briefly. Um they're the previous Solstice Warriors before you two, before Valir, before Zale. And they hate their job. They
yeah,
absolutely despise it. They hate that they are in this. Whereas Zeo and Valir are very much Ken. I'm not trying to insult the game, but like I understand like how it is because I love this game. They're very much blank slates. They're there for you to just experience the story. They're okay with pretty much everything except
yeah,
Garl dying. Um, and so with Brugraves and Erlina, Erlina especially is like, it's not fair. Why do we have to do this? We should not do this. We should find a way to not have to do this anymore and not have this responsibility and just live on our own and just be secluded. Similar to how Moraine gives up later. This is the reason why Moraine gives up. So during that big boss that you fight at the mansion after you save Garl from his second death. Um, so after you save him from that, then you fight the first dweller, dweller of sorrow. I forget what it is. Um, and it's over there, and you fight it, and you're fighting it with the whole group.
Right.
So Garl can't be there because he's not a solstice warrior, so he can't do damage. You can only fight a dweller on an eclipse, and so you have to shine an eclipse on it, as well as fight it and cast a spell to where it hurts it. So Garl finds a way to open the mansion and blow up the top. Um, so then you can have the full eclipse onto the enemy, and you're fighting it. So you're fighting it with Moraine. You get to control Moraine for a little bit, and you get to and you don't control, but they're doing it on their own. Erlina and Burgraves, they're doing their own thing. Eventually, when you're about to fight and beat this thing, you beat it. Erlina is before like it finally like dies. They do something special to it. They don't like kill it essentially, and they perform eclipse magic onto. I forget exactly what it is. It's like either the heart of it or something, and that's bad.
Yeah.
Essentially, they have been talking with other cult people of the Fleshmancer, the actual like bad guy, and they um, are like, "Hey, this is our way out. If we cooperate with the enemy, then they get the world, and we get our own alternate world. We can live somewhere." Burgraves just wants to forget. He doesn't want to have this anymore. He doesn't want to fight. He doesn't want anything. Erlina's a little bit different. Erlina doesn't want this responsibility, but is still just a warrior at heart, and so becomes the Fleshmancer's like greatest warrior,
Yep.
and gets transformed into like a big old demon thing. That is one of the final bosses. So yeah, that causes Moraine to quit. Um, and yeah, so it's just a big heavy thing that happens. Um, yeah, that's one of those things where I was like, oh, this is like how you talked about how we've been talking about cliches and all that. That was one where I was like, oh, this is different. Oh, the headmaster didn't die. These people just kind of just betrayed you, and not to necessarily gain power. It's just like we don't we don't want to deal with this anymore, so we're going to just hang out and cooperate with the master villain. And
Yeah.
the villains, those lackeys are like, okay, cool, you did it, and you did this thing, so now the Fleshmancer can come here. Now he is alive. We can find him. We can bring him here and make more dwellers and all of that, which causes Moraine to quit. Um, so there are a few other characters I kind of want to get in here really quick. So we did talk about this is scattered. This whole episode is kind of scatterbrained, but because we're trying to talk about characters more than story, and when story meets a character, then I feel like it's valid to talk about them. Because this is a spoiler cast, you should already know what we're talking about, but we want to talk about
Yeah.
like characters and their most impactful parts of their story. Um, so there's this captain. Uh, we've been saying cliche a lot. There's this captain named Captain Cliche. So she is your first pirate who you find, and you get on their really terrible ship, which is essentially just like how whenever you see pirates and like you're all like, oh wow, look at
Oh
this
yeah.
ship, isn't this awesome? It's literally just like a raft with like
Oh yeah.
with like with a stick in the middle with a sail. Like that's all it essentially is. So that's your way of getting to your first destination, and you see the captain, along with like the other people. Um, Yolande, Valtrade, and Keenathan, which are just a crazy group of people. I really love how in every inn they you can grab like sheet music and you can give it to them and then they'll just play the soundtrack
Yeah, that
in the
was really
game,
cool.
because they have like their own band. And yeah, in order to help uh in order to help Garl with his third death or second death, excuse me, where he's possessed and like he's feeling bad from the first dweller. Cliche is basically like, okay, you should go and help me get this coin of the dead or something like this, um so then I can use that to get my ship essentially. um and so you can use that coin of the dead to then help get like an antidote, as well as Cliche also just wants this for the ship. um Cliche transforms into this other character named Sarai, um and is the character who I referenced earlier. I hate playing as Sarai.
Yeah, I wasn't a big fan of her. I felt like her attacks were not very good.
You
Um,
have to use her a lot though at the very
yeah,
end. Like you have to use like a lot of her poison moves. It's just hard to do like the Moonerang thing with Valir. Like there's a lot of like hop click hop click hop click, like you're just like doing it nonstop until you mess up. um Sarai's just another um hero, playable character who just use swords. That's all they
yeah,
use. And so they they help you on your journey and you go through things, and um they still like cover themselves up and pretend to be two different people, because it's clearly like Captain Cliche is the name, which is just like a cliche of this person trying to pretend that there's someone else and trying to help you. Like it's a play on words, but it's also just the truth. Like it is just kind of a
yeah,
cliche. um and so much so like I forget what the trophy or the achievement's called, but it's like the big reveal or something like that. Where uh Sarai is like, all right, but before we go, I need to tell you something. I'm actually Captain Cliche. And Valir and Zale are like, yeah, we already knew. We just wanted you to come out on
yeah.
your own time and just tell us. Like we didn't want to um
And that's some of
do
that
it.
writing. That's some of the writing in this of like how good the writing was. Um, I think the only thing that really shocked me with her though, since this is a spoiler cast, is so she looked like a typical ninja. So she wore like the face thing or whatever.
Yeah, the mask.
When that came off and she was like half like a cyborg,
Yeah.
that's what threw me off. I was like, wait, what is happening right now? Like it was almost like that part of where did this story just go? You know?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, that definitely threw me for a loop. And like similar to how I talked about like a world of ruin and a world without like solstice warriors. Like that's where Sarai comes from. Is just that the an alternate reality across the sea of stars, which is this
yeah,
actual thing that like you, as long as you know how to like travel it, you can use it to go to any alternate reality. And so you can go to um Sarai's world, which is your world, just all the solstice warriors are dead. And
yeah,
so the Fleshmancer won. the Fleshmancer actually lives in this one, because the Fleshmancer, along with another character, like they exist outside of these universes essentially. Like they can travel between them however they see fit. Um or at least they should be able to. And they were blocked away from our from the main universe or main world until the two like Erlina like caused the thing to happen, and then now he can actually come through. um but yeah, no, it was definitely like, oh, uh hey Sarai, you're a robot. Okay, also this looks like the Technodrome. All right, let's go. Like this is very
Yeah.
much space and robots and post-apocalyptic. The like one world is like very much like older and more fantasy and like um just like fish people and like mole people, like just like these very like fantasy type characters that you would see in like I don't know, like Lord of the Rings or something like that, let's say.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
and then you go over to Sarai's world and it's like Blade Runner, or like worse than that. Like it's like Terminator, I would say. um
Yep, because some of the bosses in that level were awful. Like,
yeah,
legitimately, like, some of the harder bosses, to me at least, were in her, uh, world, and so but yeah, I think, again, this is that writing we were talking about of how good the writing is. Because I didn't see that one coming. I'm just thinking, "Oh, she's a ninja and she's a pirate."
yeah,
And then when she pulled it off, I was like, "Okay, you got me." It's like the
yeah.
12th time in the game that they got me.
Yep, that's exactly how I felt. Like somehow they get me every time. I just didn't expect all these twists and turns in this game, and I was never upset with a twist or turn. And the music even changes, like the battle music, like
Yep.
you know how it sounds like it's very like wind, I don't know, like wind instrument, but like it's very fantasy for the battle music and boss music and stuff. And then when you go into Sarai's world, it's very techno. Like it's the same song, but it has like a different instrument that they're using for it.
Yeah. It's very industrial.
Yes, definitely. Just a lot of cyborgs and androids and all that stuff there. Let's see. I want to, before we go into the next character who I have on this list, I want to bring up Teeks briefly. So Teeks is just like a person who, she's just obsessed with learning things and documenting things, and she has like this magic tome. I forget exactly what it's called, but like if you touch it, it tells like the life story of like that person essentially. So like you find these artifacts that you can give to her, and that makes a story appear. Um, and a lot of those stories, they're not mandatory, but they really do help you fill out the world, as well as fill out just the backstory of some characters. Like it talks
Yeah.
about like the Fleshmancer and his friend. It talks about like eating this certain thing that can make you live forever, but like every time you do it, like you gain like more and more um basically like not scales, I guess, but it's like thorns.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
and so like it just always hurts, but you can basically live forever, which is how the Fleshmancer is living and probably how he got his name. And then similar to that, there's another person who kind of is um our narrator in the beginning, the archivist. So it's very much through like his point of view, and he's going and just telling us the story of this game. And a certain point happens to where he's like talking about like, oh, and this, but it's trivial, like they can't do this, they won't win. And then all of a sudden there's like a knock on the door, and it's us. Like it's our characters who go into there, and he decides to help us because we talked to like the elder mist who like um gave us our prophecies. We talked to the other fish guy who gave us a prophecy, helped with our prophecies. And it convinced the archivist um to just help us more or less. Like he can't really help us, but he can kind of like help steer us in the right place. It's like similar earlier when we talked about how Garl needed to ask for like borrow some time. Um the archivist, or Rashawn is what his name is, was like, I can't it's like the genie, like from Aladdin.
Right.
He's like, I can't do it unless you ask for it. Because I'm not allowed to interfere with mortals essentially. Um and so
Also,
yeah.
also, um, with him, when you get to that last boss battle, you cannot use him for the last boss battle. He will tell you, "Hey, I can't do this battle," you know? And so, making sure you know that ahead of time is, like, kind of key. But, like, that was the 15th time where they threw stuff off, like, "Oh, by the way, I can't do this."
Yeah, so they give you a husk of him though. So he gives you like this doll where like he's not actually there, but you can use all of his attacks and equip things to him because you want a party
Yeah,
member still. But yeah, like him physically, he used to be friends with the Fleshmancer, and now um he he's just like, I can't interfere. I know that he's bad. I know that he's doing these things, and but I can't really do much. I can only really watch. I'm an archivist. I can't meddle with the affairs of the story because the story's already written. Um,
yeah,
and so that's why he can't really do things, but things happen, and that's main reason why he quits as well. Because they're fighting the the culty people, and Sarai is like, screw this, and grabs one of Rashawn's like vials, like his attack things, and throws it at the guys, and then that just summons the Fleshmancer immediately. He's like, "Hey, come on, why are you attacking? You're not supposed to be attacking. You're not supposed to be meddling with my stuff. Like now I know that you're still alive." So that's kind of the thing as well. He was kind of like hiding himself, but in
yeah,
plain sight. But he's like, "Whoa, hey, I know where you're at now. You're here. How's it going?" And they have this thing where like they freeze time, and they're like hanging it out in freeze time, frozen time, and they're just like, "Hey, why are you doing this? How's life? How are you doing?" "Oh, yeah, I'm fine." And just having this conversation, it's just really weird to see that they're still kind of friends, but at the same time, one's clearly better than like good, and one's clearly evil. Um,
right.
it's just an interesting dynamic. I do like playing as Rashawn. I like using like those potions, and also he actually has, I think he has like two um status effects or whatever, or elements, I should say. Like if you do the charge thing and like put a element on him, he gets like the purple. I forget what that is. But if you throw one of his potion time things and like time it just right to where like it hits everyone else, then that's the poison. So you get
Yeah,
double right there. So like there's interesting ways of like um fighting the enemies, taking down their little hit boxes there, and just timing things right. But yeah, how you feeling about Rashawn?
at first I was like, I don't really like him, but I think more I got him leveled up. Once you get him really good and leveled up, he's fantastic.
Yeah.
And so, um, the ones I used the most, obviously, were the two main ones. Him, and there was one other person, and it's definitely not. definitely not the ninja, but like
Hmm.
one other person, and that's it.
Okay. Well, I guess let's just talk about that one other person here really quick. So there's a final person, our final character, named Bist, who is similar to Garl in a sense. Garl's already passed away, but exists in the post-apocalyptic world, where there's just like a bunch of these like souls just like free. And
Yep.
again, like if you have a will, you can use something called living glass, um which Rashawn does like a surgery basically onto Bist, and he becomes Kool-Aid Man. So I kept calling him Kool-Aid Man every time I was
Yeah, he
playing
does
with
look like
him.
Kool-Aid Man.
And he can like transform into like anything. And as long as you have the will to live and to fight, then he can continue being in uh like existing, because he wasn't able to leave that area because otherwise he would just like die. He was like in this weird like experimental area from the Fleshmancer when he was just playing around with lives as if they're just like experiments. And so he has really cool powers. He's very much like a brawler. He has really good combo powers where like he does like the ball bouncing stuff and like does like
Oh
the
yeah.
pile driver. um but he has a really cool thing later that we'll talk about post credit stuff, post stuff here in a second. um but yeah, he was definitely later in the game, like once you get him, because I didn't have a Garl anymore. He was the shield character for us, so like I would use him, um as well as Rashawn. But yeah, I didn't really use uh Sarai unless I absolutely had to, because there are
Yeah.
certain enemies near the end too where it's like, all right, you need to do a lot of poison everyone, and it's like, okay, I guess I'll switch to you for a little bit, and I switch right back to one of those other two.
Yeah. Well, I feel
Yeah,
like you know, this those last character, he literally looked like something I would see on Ben 10.
yeah, he definitely looked like some sort of alien thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
And
he's fun.
it definitely completed it, and I wasn't expecting to get any more characters at this point, right?
Hmm.
Because you're pretty far. And when I got him, I was like, okay. And I used him probably the most,
Mm.
you know, especially with Gar being gone. Like he was my heavy hitter. And so and so like he was a really good one there. But this kind of shows you like all the loopholes that happen in this game where you get another character close to the end of the game.
Yeah. Um. So I want to talk about the ending here really quick, or like the first ending, I should say. Um. So you when Sarai threw that thing and the Fleshmancer shows up, he gives everyone their wish. He gives the cult people 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or whatever, and they get power. And it's led to believe, I don't know if it's confirmed or not, but there's like this Hydra, that's in the messenger, who has like just like a bunch of heads. It's led to believe like that is what those people became this monster. And then Erlina became like the final boss essentially. And then Brugraves just wanted to forget, and we don't know what happened to him. As far as we know that like they're wanting to do DLC, so maybe we will see something later. But as far as I know, I don't know what happened to him. I don't know when we'll know what happened to him. So once you go and kind of just do all your stuff and get ready, there comes a certain point where it's like, all right, cool. Do you want to do anything before the final mission? And it's like, no, okay, just go to the Fleshmancer's castle and go and fight the Fleshmancer. You'll go and fight Erlina, and you fight Erlina and do it and win. And then the game's just kind of done. Like you
Yeah.
fly up and it's credits, and you are in like not Space Invaders, but like Arkanoid, maybe something like that. Where like it's an arcade like space shooter, where you're fighting like the final like the I forget what it's called, but it's like the big bad
Oh yeah,
essentially. It's like the big thing that happens every so many years. That like they can summon, like the bad people can summon. So you're fighting that, and it's just yeah, you're shooting, and then eventually like you get like a super meter, and you can like shoot it, and you do it. You win. Um, it honestly felt pretty anticlimactic to me. Not gonna lie. I was
yeah,
like, oh, okay, that's it. All right. But then the game kind of hints at these rocks, and you can do that here in a second. But for that first boss fight, or that final boss fight for you, plus the credits thing, like how'd you feel about that?
and we've talked about this before in other podcasts that or before, like not in the podcast, but like
Yeah,
just talking. It did feel anticlimactic. I mean, and I'm going to use an example: Final Fantasy X, right? The last when you fight Sin for the last time, and I guess this is a spoiler cast. I should say spoilers again. You find out Sin is like actually Titus's dad. So, but that's not the only thing. There's a whole bunch of other things that happen, but that's what made that end story so good. Is like you find this out, then you find this out, then you find this stuff, and so for me, it felt very okay. So it's over, and now when we start talking about it, you can do other things. I did not go back
you're
and
missing
do other
out.
things, and I just haven't had time to really go back and
Okay.
do it.
So I'm gonna
Uh,
spoil it for you here because this is a spoiler cast, and
yeah,
you need to know what you're missing. So yeah, so you do all that and stuff, and it's like, oh, there are these rocks here, and you've seen these rocks before. You need to go over here, and each rock symbolizes a person or a thing that you need to do. So there are these rainbow conches that you can get, where you can use those to rebuild. Um, your new like town on an island, thanks to Gerard the Constructionist instead of Gerard the Completionist, which is really cool to see him in there because I guess he's pretty good friends with the devs, so that's how he's in it. Um, but you get that as well as just like other abilities or stuff from doing that. There's this thing for Bist, where you can at the old like where you met the pirates, there's this arena and you can go and fight, and Bist is like, all right, I want to find my purpose in life. I really like challenges, I really like fighting, and so you can
right.
go and fight, and so he always has to be there. But he'll be like, all right, I want you and you with me, and so you go and you like basically like do a tournament, and you just fight a bunch of enemies, and then you fight like the bronze title holder and then the silver title holder and like that kind of stuff, and then you fight like this huge crab at the end that turns small, and then he hangs out on your ship. And he just like it's just there just hanging because you beat him. um let's see. There's quite a few other things here that you can that are required. I forget exactly what it is. Like there's certain like locations of final weapons and like final like side missions. I did all of those as well. And so once you do all of these, a portal opens there. And you go through that portal. It brings you to the part where time was frozen, and Rashawn and the Fleshmancer are talking, and Garl's about to get shot. And so what you do, you pull a chrono trigger, and you replace Bist with Garl. And
Oh,
Bist can survive anything with sheer willpower, and he transforms into Garl. And so he is he so like everything still plays out as it should, since like you can't really like mess with the fabric of time and space. um So like you bury Garl, you're all upset about Garl, but it's actually been Biss this whole time. Um, and you grab Garl and you take him out, and he's like, "Whoa, hey, what happened?" And then he has knowledge from the afterlife, and he can't really talk about it, but he's like, "I knew you guys could do this." And so you have Garl, and so you have to go back to the tree, and you dig up Garl's grave, and Bist is in there, and he's like, "Oh, hey guys, how's it going?" And now you have Bist, and now you have a full party, and you go and you um you have everyone. So now I have Garl. He has a super move, which has every single element connected to him, and it's like a
Oh
really
wow.
really huge super move here, which is really good to use. And he because you already beat the game, and you kind of like it was you got the option or whatever to go do something before the final boss. Um, so now you're gonna go fight the Fleshmancer as if it's your first time, because it's like a what if scenario, I guess, but it's actually like the true thing. So you haven't fought the Fleshmancer, so you go up and you're gonna fight like Erlina essentially, and then because Garl is there, he yells at the Fleshmancer and changes what happens, and it's basically like, "What? You're too cowardly to fight us yourself? Like we came all the way here, essentially." And so you fight the Fleshmancer,
Oh
and
wow.
he like summons like these huge like flesh tentacles or like dragon things that do a lot of damage. And basically, you have to just keep attacking the Fleshmancer until he until you do enough damage to him, and then you go into that fight, like the space fight. And so you learn a new move in that space fight, which is dodge. So you hit like B or circle or whatever to dodge underneath lasers. So you're actually like trying to dodge everything, trying to attack and get all of those things down. Um, and then if you die up there, then you go back to your fight, and then you have to just rinse and repeat. Just keep fighting until you because essentially the Fleshmancer like gets health back, it seems, on his like main fight. So like you go and you fight him, and then you do a lot of damage to him, and then you get to go back up into that flying scene and just try to do more like that. That health bar stays, so like you are doing progress on it until eventually where um you just kind of win. And
Yeah.
he gives up, and Rashawn and him kind of just walk away together. Like Rashawn like pops up, he actually pops up, and he's just like, "Hey, it's over. They won. You promised you'd leave them alone. Let's go." And so they leave,
See,
and that's that.
see now I just downloaded it on my PS5, and I instead of like going back and doing it all on because I played it on my computer for Game Pass,
Mm-hmm.
I almost want to do it on my PS5
Yeah.
for trophies. So that's probably what I'll end up doing, and then I'll go back and do those things. So, it's funny you talk about the ending and you talk about this game in general and all the things we've already talked about. It, I wasn't 100% sure this was going to be like one of my if my game of the year there. And I have not played Spider-Man, but I like Spider-Man, just not like, there. Um, I don't know, man. This is probably going to be my game of the year.
Mm-hmm.
And so, when we've talked about so many things like the complexity of the story, the gotcha moments, which there's a lot,
Yeah.
um, the replayability. So, I mean, I don't know why this wouldn't be like on everyone's list for game of the year, to be honest.
Yeah. As long as they played it. I do
Right.
know I've seen people complain, and like they are valid complaints here or there, but then some people are just like being mean, and so it's like, okay, whatever, I'm gonna ignore you. There is a final thing that I don't want to spoil, because even like in Gerard's review, he didn't spoil this either because like it's very I've already told you about it kind of, but like it's
Yeah,
very cool to see. It's a cool Easter egg to see that you just don't really expect. And so when you when you beat the game the first time, you get a flimsy hammer. And then for doing other things, certain things, so whether to like basically bring Garl back, you get more flimsy hammers, and I think you also have to like play wheels, which is another thing we didn't talk about, which is like a game within a game. And you get enough flimsy hammers to open up a wall, and you get a really cool Easter egg. So I recommend everyone to complete this game because there's a lot to be seen here, especially if you played the messenger. Like you will love this Easter egg. It's so funny and so good.
it's
So
funny because
yeah,
I
great.
did play it, but I got stuck on a boss,
Mhm.
like the third boss or the fourth boss.
I got stuck on the DLC, so I need to go back to it and
Yeah,
try to fight it. But yeah, this game, as we've talked about for over an hour and a half here, it's definitely worth it. We think it's our game of the year. Yeah, I mean, unless anything else comes out pretty soon, I'm just gonna say it, and I think you'll say it too. I mean, you already kind of said it. Like, I think this is Get At Gaming's official game of the year. Like,
yeah,
it
yeah.
definitely is.
And I'm gonna play Spider-Man, but I'm not like I don't know. There's a couple games I'm gonna play during our break. I wrote a list, and this is what I have to stick to get done.
Yeah.
I have Breath of the Wild on there because I've not played that yet.
Hmm.
I have Spider-Man, and then um,
16.
yeah, I have 16 on there, which I own, but I haven't played it yet. And then I just wrote down like a bunch of the smaller games I own.
Hmm.
But I really want to finish some of these games going into that next year because there is a lot of stuff coming out first of the year. And so
Yeah.
I want to make sure that I got that Mario RPGs on that list to finish this year.
Hmm.
Um, Mario Wonder, I want to play that. And so, but why I'm kind of like waiting for them, some of those, I would honestly have to say this is going to be my game of the year, which is crazy because Advanced Wars 1 and 2, I love.
Hmm.
I mean, nostalgia all the way, but you know what? I played like 4 or 5 hours of it and it didn't grasp me like Sea of Stars. Like
Yeah.
Sea of Stars is that game where I'm at work and I'm like, oh my God, when can I play Sea of Stars again? Like, what's happening next? Or you
Yeah.
stop at a key point because you're like, hey, it's like 11 o'clock at night
Yeah.
and I work tomorrow. Um, and I haven't had a game do that in a while. Ghost was the last game that did to me,
Yeah.
like honestly.
Yeah. So
So
I would say I said this in my tweet earlier that we talked about, more or less, but I would say Celeste is to platformers as Sea of Stars is to RPGs. Like they're both very much indie darlings who are just the culmination of the best parts of those genres, and just does wonders. I love Celeste. It has a great story even. Like Celeste is there for the gameplay, but it's also there for the story. And if you want to listen to the story, cool, it's great. I love it. But it's really great gameplay. Whereas Sea of Stars, same thing. It's a really great RPG. It has really great RPG mechanics. Has interesting RPG mechanics. It and it also has a great story as well. So like, it's crazy to me for me to see two games now from like indie developers who surpassed like their genre.
right,
Like Celeste is like Mario and Celeste are kind of apples and oranges, but I would say like Celeste is like more refined Meat Boy. Um whereas like Super Meat Boy, whereas like yeah, Sea of Stars tries to do things like Chrono Trigger and clearly succeeds, and for me does even better than Chrono Trigger. Um
yeah,
So yeah, it definitely gets that thumbs up from us. We've talked a lot about this, but I want to end this episode here really quick with a short sentence, I guess. So I want to know who your favorite character is from this game, and I want to know why in like two senses. Like we've already talked so much about all these different characters, and obviously every one of them has a place. Um, but I think I know who you're gonna say. But I at the same time I'm curious, and I'm sure the audience is curious too. Like because this is such a story heavy game as well as a game. Like who is your favorite character and why?
So I think it's going to throw everyone off. Um, only because of their story, but um, I'm really going to go with Rashawn or
Yeah,
slash the is it the archivist, right?
archivist. Yeah,
Archivist. And the reason is because you start the story and you just see someone sitting in a chair and you see their hand all wrapped up, and then mid game you see the door open and that's he's telling the story as they're doing their adventure.
yeah,
So he was a really good one, and then he had some really weird moments of like where he's like, I have to go think of something
yeah.
or I have to go do something, and he just left, and he left you with that the one. So I think he's like one of my favorite characters. I know everyone was thinking probably Gar. Um, I think Gar's too predictable for me to pick of like that's my favorite character.
Well, call
So
me predictable because Garl is my favorite character.
I could
Um,
have called that.
he's my Steven Universe boy. I love Steven Universe. It's one of my favorite shows ever. He's just so positive, even in death. He like just is very positive. The game the game forced me to care about this character just because of how many times it fooled me with like, oh, he's dead. No, he's not. Yeah, he's dead. No, he's not. Okay, he's dead for real. And then even at the end of the game, post credits and all that post game stuff, oh, he's not dead. Awesome.
Yep.
Good.
Yeah.
Stop doing this. And then even at the end of all that, like there's an epilogue, where like so at the end of the game, similar to the first ending, um, the the Solstice Warriors, so Valir and um, wow, Zale, they have to go fly up and become balls of light and just fight and protect the world, and so they disappear essentially. So in the first one, you just see Teeks talking about them, and because at the final, before they fly away, Teeks is like, "Hey, wait, no, you promised to give me your story." It's like, "All right, cool," and then they put like their things that they sewed together at the very beginning on the book, and then that writes their story since it's a magic book. Um, and so Teeks can essentially just tell everyone the story of the Solstice Warriors about how they saved the day and all of that. Um, at the end of the post game and everything, if you save Garl's alive and kicking, and he's old man Garl. And the difference, the before Teeks would be like, because Garl was dead, is like, oh, the Solstice Warriors will always show up. They're said to show up always on their friend's birthday to like visit the grave, and now they show up and they're older. They show up now at their old hideout for Garl's birthday because he's like, hey, don't forget, you should come visit me on my birthday because if you guys have to go away, he like makes it a plot point where he's like, hey, you should come visit me every year on my birthday.
Yeah.
And so they go and visit like in that old town in their old little like kid hideaway, and they just talk about like, oh man, yeah, we used to um hang out here all the time, and it's like kind of just like ends like that. Like it's very nice of like, oh cool, everyone's alive, everyone's great, everyone's doing their best, and um I would love to see what Garl's doing next, like in a DLC, and all of that. But yeah, no, I went too long. But yeah, Garl is great. Garl's my favorite. He's a good boy. So yeah, again, our final review. You should buy this game. You should play this game. If you're already here and you still haven't played this game, and you've listened to this whole thing, what's wrong with you? Go play this game.
Yeah.
Um, it our review again, our spoiler cast was very built upon talking about each of the characters, and then the story was kind of secondary to go with the characters, so that's why it feels kind of scatterbrained. But I promise you the game's not like that. So I recommend going to play the game. Again, it's on everything. It's fairly cheap. I'm sure it's going to go on sale like
Oh
during like
yeah.
the winter sales or whatever, because it's doing so well. Like they could definitely put it on sale, and still just make a ton of money. So um but yeah, thanks so much for being here. Thanks so much earlier. I mean, we talked about it earlier, but thanks so much to Magic Mind for being a sponsor for this episode. And yeah, Ben, do you have anything else to say to lovely people?
Just to get at it.
Get at it.